Okay, just going to give it a minute for a few people to join us. Hey guys, for those of you who have joined, we're just going to give it a minute, allowing a few more people to join and sign in. Give it a couple of more minutes, well, 2 minutes, and then we'll kick off. Hi everyone that's signing in at the moment, seeing a few familiar names. Nice to see that you've been able to join us. And there's some new names here as well. Welcome. We are just giving it a minute so we can allow a few more people to join, and then we will kick off our discussion. Okay, I think we are good to go. Let's start. I'm sure people will be joining throughout the session, but let's officially kick off. So for those of you who've joined us today, thank you so much for taking time out to sign up and turn up and learn and listen and hopefully participate in the discussion. Today we're talking about an amazing topic, something that's so prevalent this year. Almost everyone I speak to, whether you're a young professional or you are a founder of a business, or actually if you're an experienced professional or, youth trying to figure out what to do, imposter syndrome and owning your brand always comes up. Everyone this year has been told to own your brand, come out of your shell, step forward, own your brand, own your truth. But it's not as easy as it sounds. And a lot of people are struggling with it. So we thought today, let me bring two people that I consider to be experts in this field to join me in a discussion with you all, talking about overcoming imposter syndrome and owning your brand. So I would like to introduce you ladies first, to Tiwa Lola Ogunlesi, who is a qualified coach specializing in positive psychology, a master neuro-linguistic practitioner, an international speaker, and the founder of Confident in Killing It, a purpose-driven organization that wakes women up to their worth so that they can be confident and really stand in their truth. Tiwa wakes up women to their worth so that they can be confident, unstoppable, and dare to live a life that they truly desire. Since 2018, Tiwa has upskilled over 2,700 women, which is amazing. And I am living testament that actually Tiwa's work is fantastic. So I'm so excited that we have Tiwa on the panel. You guys,
Thank you.
Welcome Tiwa. So
Thanks
nice
for
to have
having me. Hi, everyone.
And next, but definitely not least, I would like to introduce you all to Damola Timayin, who is a global creative strategist at Facebook. Beyond his day job, he is the head of strategy of POCC, a global network for creatives of color responsible for shaping organizational strategy. In addition to this, he is the co-author of the book, How to Build It, a guide for people turning their side hustle into a brand, published by Murky Books. So first of all, congratulations, Damola. That's a fantastic achievement. And for those of you who haven't bought his book, please go and get it on Amazon now. He'll be, sharing some of the key gems and insights from his book in this session. It is really, really good. I'm not going to go into it in too much depth now because we can touch on it a bit later, but it's fantastic. It's got activities that you can use to kind of help you, through your journey and discovering, what your brand is. It's absolutely amazing. But Damola, I'll stop talking, but really excited to have you with us today.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's I'm really looking forward to having this conversation.
Awesome. Right. And I always make an assumption that everybody knows who Cornerstone partners are and who I am and what we do. So I'll just give a very quick intro and overview. So my name is Chanel Lancer. I head up Cornerstone Partners, and Cornerstone Partners is essentially an angel syndicate here in the UK. It's one of the first and to date is the only angel syndicate which is focused on investing in founders from a Black and diverse background here in the UK. We are an investment firm, but we also have a huge emphasis and passion for investing in our community, hence why we're putting on this event today. So it's really, really important. This is actually the last event that we are putting on, community-driven event that we're putting on for the year. And for those of you who have attended some of our previous sessions, you would have seen that all of the topics would, have been geared towards providing you with information and insight to kind of help you develop yourself and grow your business if you are a founder. So back to the topic, overcoming imposter syndrome and owning your brand. What does that even mean? So we're going to discuss, we're going to be talking through a few points, which are as follows. So imposter syndrome and how to overcome it, how to build a strong brand for yourself and your business, how to unlock your potential and drive real change, how to navigate the system, and what to do once you've overcome your imposter syndrome. So by the end of this session, you guys are all going to be masters on it. You're going to be walking around being like, yeah, imposter syndrome, it's nothing. Everyone's got this. We've all got this. It's fine. You're going to walk away. You're going to be like, right, now I need to work on my brand, or actually I'm doing the right thing. Or actually there's some takeaways that I can apply to my life and also my business. So let's jump into the discussion. Cool. So let's start with an important question, actually, a really basic question. But what is imposter syndrome? And I'm going to start with Damola and then move to Tiwa next.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the introduction to us. Fabulous to be on a panel with you. I've been following your Instagram for a long time, and I think actually Tiwa is definitely a better place to answer that question than me, but I'll give it a good shot. For me, imposter syndrome is a feeling. It's how you feel when you walk into the room, and if you were to characterize that feeling, it's a feeling of not feeling that you are worthy of being in that space, and the questioning of your confidence and ability to deliver in that space. That's how I would characterize imposter syndrome. So a feeling or a sense that you aren't capable of stepping up to the plate when it matters, if we want to really define it for me.
Awesome. And then Tiwa, the expert on this particular subject.
Yeah, so we can get into the science of it and the research, but before we do that, I'll say for me, imposter syndrome is just temporary memory loss where you have forgotten all the amazing things about you, all your strengths, all your gifts, all your talents, and you're walking into that room thinking, I don't deserve to be here. I don't think I have what it takes. But if you only just remembered your strengths and your skills and the experience that you have had, then you know that you deserve to be in that room. So On simple terms, I think it's temporary memory loss, but then there's actually like 5 different ways imposter syndrome shows up from the research of Dr. Caroline Leaf, which we can go into later.
Okay, sounds good. No, I love that. So it's a feeling. It's how you feel when you walk into a room. But T was actually like, you know what? Actually, it's memory loss because you're in that room for a reason. So in that moment, momentarily, you have forgotten about your worth and your value. And then imposter syndrome takes over, this feeling that Damola described. It takes over and you feel like you don't belong. So I think that's fantastic. So let's delve into imposter syndrome in a bit more detail. Let's get into some of the science, and then we can move into how to overcome it. You can share some tips with the guys.
Yeah, so Dr. Caroline Leaf, she did a lot of research into imposter syndrome and like the different ways it shows up. So it has like, I think, 5 different personas. The first persona is the perfectionist. So I wonder if there are any perfectionists in the room. You can let us know in the chat. And the perfectionist is always setting ridiculously high goals and standards for themselves. And then when they don't reach those goals, they feel like they're not good enough. They beat themselves up about it and they feel like they don't have what it takes. And then they get nervous and then the imposter syndrome kicks in. But it actually has nothing to do with whether they're good enough or not. It's just that the goals they are setting are just so unattainable that it causes them to feel like they're not good enough. And then you have the natural genius. So maybe you were really smart when you were younger in school and things really came easy to you when you were younger. And then all of a sudden you get into the real world and you face some challenges and you're like, maybe I'm not as smart as I used to be. Maybe I'm not as good as I used to be. And then you start freaking out that you don't have what it takes. Imposter syndrome shows up. And then we have like the superhuman who says yes to everything and doesn't learn to set boundaries because they are like, if I say no, people are going to think I don't have what it takes to do my job. So I need to say yes to everyone and please everyone. So my colleagues or the people around me think that, oh, okay, she knows her stuff. She's really good at what she does. She's saying yes to everything. Wow, she can handle so much. And then we have, and you could be multiple personas in different areas. So as I'm describing all of this, I want you to think about where these personas show up for you in your life. And then we have the soloist, and the soloist is the person who does not ask for help. They really, really struggle to ask for help because they see asking for help as a sign of weakness. So they will often work harder than everybody else because they think they're not really good at what they do and everyone else is smarter than them. So they need to overwork so that they can actually, get to the same level as everyone else. And they're also afraid to ask for help because they think, oh, if I ask for help, people will think I don't have all the answers and then they'll think I'm a fraud. And it's so interesting how we've gone from, if you ask for help, all of a sudden you're a fraud, whereas no one has all the answers, but we'll get into that later. And then the last one is the expert. And the expert is the person who needs to know it all and have all the answers and be it all. And, they place their worth in their knowledge. And they're only as worth as how much they know. So they spend all their time taking in all of this knowledge, and they don't actually take action on it because then they're overwhelmed by all the knowledge they know and they don't know where to start. And then imposter syndrome kicks in as well. Like, what if somebody asks me a question and I don't have the answer? They'll think I'm a fraud and then they freak out, whereas no one has all the answers. So yeah, so those are like the 5 personas of imposter syndrome and how they show up in your life.
Gosh, how many of you can relate to one of those 5 personas? I mean, I could relate to multiple, and I can see many of you in the comments are like, wow, that's me. Yes, I am a superhuman. It's true, and yeah, you can be all of them, as Tiwa said. You can, Randy, you definitely can. And that's really, really fascinating because you've outlined different personas of high achievers, people that are intelligent, people that are capable, people that are high achievers, people that go above and beyond. But, these are all the personas associated with traits linked to being an imposter or having imposter syndrome. So interesting. So actually, it's not that you are not good enough. Because all the personas that you've just mapped out shows actually you are good enough. It's that, your need to do too much, whichever one of the 5 it is, pushes you to then have temporary memory loss, as we're going to start saying from now on. Temporary memory loss in the moment. No, I love that. I do love that. Okay, so we've mapped it out. 5 different types of imposter syndrome, right? Right, so let's talk a little bit about how to overcome it, right? So how are some of the ways that we can overcome imposter syndrome when we're in the moment?
I'll let Damola go first.
Speaking from personal experience, I would say there are a number of different tools and strategies you can use to overcome this syndrome. And in no particular order, what I love about what Buzz said is that, you know, there are these personas. One of the things that I practically will do to overcome that imposter syndrome is to recognize that everyone else in this room that I'm stepping into, whether they're high achievers or not, possibly feel the same way. So I think allowing yourself to recognize that you aren't the only one feeling that way is often a good way to neutralize that feeling that you get when you feel like you're an imposter. I think another way to think about it is that imposter syndrome is about the psychology. It's about how you think. So in order to get over imposter syndrome, this feeling, you have to change how you think. And the first thing I would say to someone that's trying to get over imposter syndrome is that the most important conversations you have in your life are the conversations you have with yourself. Now, think about the conversations you're having with yourself as you enter into that room. Is a conversation starting with, I think I'm a fraud, or I don't think I'm going to be able to perform in front of a room full of these incredible people? If those are the conversations you're having with yourself, then you need to start having different conversations with yourself. And before you enter into that room, I mean, people will say, oh, you know, talking to yourself is a sign of madness. It's not. I think we all speak to ourselves, but we're just not aware of the conversations that we're having. So the first thing is change the conversation you're having with yourself in order to trigger different thoughts. Conversations like, I'm going to go into this room, and by the time I leave, everybody's going to be in the palm of my hand. Or I'm walking into this room and there's no one in this room that knows more than me. Or I'm walking into this room and thinking, I deserve to be here. All of these things are thoughts and conversations that you're having with yourself. So I think the biggest lesson that I have learned over the years is about trying to change the way I think, and change the way I think by having different conversations with myself.
So
If somebody is going to come and tell me that I'm not supposed to be here, that's a different matter.
Yeah.
If imposter syndrome is imposed from the outside rather than within, then that's a different matter. But a lot of the time, imposter syndrome comes from within, and therefore the biggest or the best thing you can do is to start having that conversation with yourself.
So true. Tell yourself that you deserve to be there. So important.
Yeah, I totally agree. Mindset is everything. I always say the first thing you need to know before you start a business is yourself, because your mind is the foundation to every single thing that you do. And your mind is a battlefield. There is no one on this planet who has never experienced imposter syndrome or self-doubt or negative thoughts. We all experience it. So the challenge is not whether you will experience imposter syndrome or not. The real question is, when the imposter syndrome does show up, how are you going to respond? And you can respond in 2 ways. You can either believe everything the imposter syndrome says, or you can challenge it, as Amola was saying, by saying something positive about yourself and what you actually want to believe about yourself, right? Do you want to believe that you don't deserve to be in the room? No, you want to believe that you're going to walk in there and pitch your idea, or, you know, sell your products and sell your service and, you know, build your brand and things like that. What is the story you want for your life? Because the stories you tell yourself are so, so important. If you tell yourself disempowering stories, that's what's going to happen in your life. If you tell yourself empowering stories, that's what's going to happen. Whatever story you tell yourself is what plays out. So yeah, you really, really have to check your thoughts. I think when my first kind of experience with imposter syndrome was when, like last year, I got invited to a Women in Leadership's Roundtable by Magnify magazine. And I was like, huh? Like, why would they invite me to a women in leadership roundtable? Like, I'm not a CEO. I don't have a £1 million company. Like, I was still working in my corporate job. Confident and Killing It was literally a side hustle. And I was like, this is so strange. What do they see in me that they think I deserve to be at a roundtable, having a conversation with women from the government and here and there, you know? And so first thing I did was I called my mom. And I was like, Mom, I've just got invited to this round table. I don't really know why. And she was like, what? Are you kidding? Of course you're a leader. Look at what you've done here with Confident and Killing It. Look at how you group women together and you bring women together and you empower them. That is leadership. Go look at John Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership and see that you are actually a leader. And I was like, oh, okay. So I went on YouTube and I researched leadership by John Maxwell. And I realized I ticked a lot of the boxes that he was talking about in an authentic leader. Now, you've got to have cheerleaders in your life. If you cannot be your own cheerleader on some days, you have to be surrounded by people who actually know what you are capable of doing and can remind you. Remember, I said it's memory loss, and can remind you of the great things about you when you're doubting yourself. And if you don't have people surrounded by you who are cheering you on, you have to keep receipts of your accomplishments. So I have a monthly wins tracker, and I can share the link for everyone on the chat so you can download it for free. I have a monthly wins tracker where a massive spreadsheet calendar for the whole year, and I literally go in every single month and write my small wins and my big wins every single month. So before any big meeting is coming up in the future, I can just go back to my wins tracker and just take a quick glance. When imposter syndrome is creeping in or comparison is creeping in, I just go back to my wins tracker and I remind myself of the journey that I've been on and how I do have what it takes to keep going. So to sum it all up, mindset is key. Surrounding yourself by positive people who can lift you up, and keeping track of your accomplishments and celebrating yourself and your accomplishments is really important.
Well said. Honestly, I hope you all took notes. It's so important, you know, to reframe the way you think. And actually, I really hope that you guys take some of the advice given by both Damola and Tiwa on, you know, how to overcome imposter syndrome. It's so important. So now let's talk a little bit about brand, right? You know, 2020 and even prior to that, but this year more so than ever, like we're hearing a lot about brand, building your brand. Whether you're a working professional or whether you're a student or whether you're a founder, you know, everyone is trying to double down on strengthening their brand or creating a brand. You know, there are a lot of people that are like, oh, you know, I've been working really hard, but people don't really know about all the fantastic things they're doing. And they're like, okay, actually, now I need to start putting some work into really crafting my brand and showcasing what I can do and my abilities. So let's talk a little bit about that. So how to build a strong brand for you, for yourself or for your business. Damola, what are your thoughts on building a brand for yourself and for your business?
Well, I don't necessarily want to plug the book, but that's essentially what we wrote it about. It was so how to build it is all about growing your brand, but I think often the most important place to start is just understanding what a brand is. A brand isn't necessarily, you know, the tangible product or the service that you offer. The brand is the intangible, the kind of the way in which people think about the service or products that you are offering, the way in which people experience the product or service that you're offering. A really interesting study was done into the value of the FTSE 100 companies. And when I'm an accountant by trade, that's what I did before I got into advertising and marketing. But when you look at the value of a business, the value will be held in the tangible things that exist, whether that's cash, whether those are, you know, physical fixed assets and otherwise. And then there's this intangible, and it's a line on the balance sheet. It's a kind of intangible asset. And I often kind of go to people who are thinking more kind of financial terms. The brand is that intangible, the value that people add to the, you know, product or service that you're delivering that you can't necessarily feel, but everyone understands it. And for me, that is an interesting way to understand what a brand is. Most people understand it as the logo on a piece of clothing. or the brand's name, but it's a combination of all the things that an individual will experience when they come into contact with yourself, if you are a personal brand, or with the product or service, if it's an actual business. How you develop your brand, we can have a conversation for hours about that. But I think the fundamental thing is understanding how to define what your brand is. And one of the things that we encourage people to start with is, how would you, describe what it is you do? Start there. Often when I ask people, so what do you do? What is your brand? They can't actually tell me in a succinct way. And I think if you can't describe it, if you can't explain what you do, what it means, what it's about, how do you expect anyone else to understand what it is, what you do, and what you're about? And that for me is like one of the fundamental things of establishing and building a brand, defining what it is, what it means, who it's for, and what you expect people to take away from it. So defining a brand is often the best place to start. Some people think you need a degree to do that, but you absolutely do not. There's an exercise that we have in the book, which is try to explain what it is your brand stands for, what it is your brand is about in a tweet.
Okay.
And I'm not going to put you on the spot, but if you were to describe your brand, how would you do that? In fact, I lie. I'm going to put you on the spot. How would you describe your brand?
Is this a question for me?
Yes, it is.
Oh gosh. Okay. All right. Okay. So my brand. So I am an investor that is mission focused and driven about diversity. And I'm also a founder and consultant in the startup ecosystem, and who's passionate about causing disruption. So that's me in a nutshell.
So I would say that was 2 tweets, but that is absolutely fine, because you've been able to clearly articulate what it is you do, who you are, and who you do it for. I think one of the other important things is to explain what the benefit of your brand is, because you can explain what it is, but unless someone hearing that communication understands the benefit that you're delivering, then there's a slight bit missing. They might go and pick up the other can on the shelf, or go to another service offering a slightly similar thing.
Cool. Got it. But okay, but out of 10, how did I do?
I would give that an 8.5.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's good. Okay, so being able to succinctly kind of describe what it is that you do. And in your book, Damola, you talk about your why, right? And how that feeds into defining your brand. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I think that's really, really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, so this is a really, this is a controversial topic in the world of marketing and brand building. What is your why? There was a guy called Simon Sinek. He did this really famous TED talk that was like, start with your why. Why are you doing this? Why are you building this brand? Why are you building this business? And the crux of it is understand the reason why you're doing it and try and communicate or express that to the consumer, because often people aren't just looking for the kind of practical and functional in your brand. They're also trying to understand the purpose of your brand, and the why is that kind of why are you doing it, what is your purpose. That is essentially what the why means. Now in the like marketing and brand world, a lot of people think that's rubbish, because ultimately if your product or service doesn't deliver, the why doesn't matter. You might have a grandiose purpose, but ultimately if you buy a car that's supposed to take you from A to B and it has a lofty why, like Tesla, they're all about trying to save the world by creating sustainable automobile products. If that car does not go from A to B without breaking down, the why doesn't matter. So having a why is important, because I think it provides kind of internal motivation for yourself if you're a personal brand, or motivation for your staff or your colleagues. They're there because you're doing a good thing, you have a clear purpose. But if the thing you're actually doing is trash, none of that matters. Your brand will still stay on that shelf. And so I think whilst the why is important, the what you do and how you deliver it is actually more important than the why often.
No, it's so true. It's so, so true. So Tiwa, you do a lot of work, you know, through your coaching and through your masterclass sessions about guiding people to link their values to their brands and really live in their truth. What are your thoughts on, you know, for, I guess if we were to say, if you're just starting out and you're trying to define your brand, what sort of initial advice would you give?
Yeah, I think you could always start from your story. You know, I wasn't intentional about creating a brand for myself. I literally just shared my story, and then that's what people began to know me for. And then then I was a bit more intentional about creating it into a brand. But in the beginning, it's just kind of like, what's your life story? You know, what really matters to you? Who are you? What do you stand for? That's what I would say. You know, if you, feel like, oh, you don't really know what your product or service is and you're finding it hard to describe, just start from a personal level. What's your mission in life? What do you stand for? What do you want to be known for? And my mission in life is to wake women up to their worth so they can be confident, unstoppable, and really just dare to live the life that they truly desire. That's what I want to be known for. And my company was initially called Your Wake Up because it was about waking people up. And my first event was called Confident and Killing It, Self-Love 101. And so I did that first ever event back in 2017. And then everywhere I went, people were like, hey, confident and killing it. Hey, confident and killing it. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm confident and killing it then. And then I turned the brand into Confident and Killing It. And that's how I began to show up in the world. And it's funny because when you call your brand Confident and Killing It, by default, that is the life you begin to live out, right? Because that's what your like kind of glass, like you're looking through life, is that filter, you know. And in my mind, I'm like, what would Confident and Killing It Tiwa do? And then that begins to like lead to the actions and how I live out the brand. So knowing what is your personal story, you know, we've all gone on a journey in life. What is that story? Try and like find the key points in that story, share your story, share what you stand for in the world, and then the people who are interested in that story will be drawn to you and build community with you. And that is how you begin to build your brand, and people begin to know who you are and what you stand for.
Okay, no, that makes perfect sense. So let's go back a step and let's break it down for someone who doesn't even know where to begin, right? So you've both mentioned about the importance of being able to succinctly describe what it is that you're doing, or what your products or service is offering, or what your brand is about. You know, Tiwa, you've talked about linking it to your values and kind of linking it to your purpose in life. But that's all well and good. But where do I start? So if I'm trying to define my brand, you know, imagine, okay, I'm a new founder, I'm building this product, or I'm a working professional, and, you know, I've been an operator for so many years, and now I'm trying to come to the forefront. Okay, I've you know, got my Twitter description down. I think, you know, I know my purpose. I know what I'm trying to achieve. What do I do next? Where do I go from here?
So there's a really good model called the Ikigai model, and it's a Japanese model for like finding your purpose. And it looks at what you love doing, what you're actually good at, what the world needs right now, and what you can get paid for. So it's really simple. If you just Google Ikigai and look at it, it's like loads of different circles. And then your Ikigai is the point in the middle where all of those things really meet. So I always say you are your most powerful self when your strengths and your interests align and you operate from that space. So Confident and Killing It makes perfect sense for me because my strengths are good communication skills, emotional intelligence, and then my interests are raising women, helping women, seeing women win. When you mix those two things together and you live from that place, it gives you a sense of purpose in life, and then you can begin to build your brand from that space. So I definitely recommend the Ikigai model. And then there's like a few sentence structures to think about. So for example, I am here to, like what Damola was saying, what are you here to do? Like actually think about what would you get paid for? What would you like to get paid for? I do this by, like, what is the thing that you actually do? And then I'm here to help. Who are you here to help? So put that down as well. And as a result of your work, what do those people experience? And then this matters to me because why is the work you're doing, why does it matter to you? So what is it that you do, who you help, how you actually do it, and then what is the results you see, and why is this thing so important to you?
Well summarized. And I saw that you were putting some points in the chat as well. Would you like to talk?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it reflects what Tila was saying. So what I often advise people to do is to use these kind of structures to define your brand. So for example, at damala.com, we believe in quality, sustainability, etc., etc. Those are your values. And that is why and you have your purpose there. That is why we are trying to create a brand for sustainable living. We offer, and the next part is actually very, very important, your proposition. What is it that you're actually offering to the consumer? Defining that quite clearly is key. And then and you describe your audience. Now that sentence structure, as Tua had described one to you earlier, is an interesting way, again, to summarize what your brand is all about, and it covers essentially all the key elements of what a brand contains. So your proposition, your brand name, I think that's important, your values, your purpose, and your audience. I just want to focus on one thing whilst we're here, your audience. Where I would start before doing anything else in terms of building your brand is understanding your audience. Often, people have a great idea and they go, right, okay, I'm going to start this business. I think it's great. This idea came to me in my sleep. I'm going to be a millionaire next year. You know, I don't know if you know the TV program Only Fools and Horses. Del Boy would always say, by this time next year, Rodney will be millionaires. And every single idea that he had, the one thing I noticed even back then is he didn't speak to anyone about it. He didn't really understand the audience he was selling to. He just assumes that what he was selling was valuable to people. And the result was a house or a flat in Peckham that was full of all the things that he tried to sell in the market. Now, the problem that I identified in that is he didn't really understand the audience he was selling to. So I think before you do anything else, before you start, really understand the audience that you are speaking to and be very focused on understanding them intimately, because in going through that process of understanding who your audience are and what they want, you can build a brand that will actually meet the needs of that audience. In technology, we call it product market fits, where you try and find the fit between your product and the market that you are selling to. If your brand or your product doesn't fly, often it's because there is no product market fit. The thing you are selling doesn't fit the market need, and all of a sudden you're back at square zero. So I think the starting place that I would encourage for people is to really understand your audience.
100%. Yeah, I definitely agree. I did something similar when I was starting Confident and Killing It. I co-created the brand with my audience. And that's another thing you can research, like co-creation and like, you know, having focus groups and things like that. So I invited every single year, I invite girls, women into a room, and I ask them, okay, how did Confident and Killing It help you? Or what does Confident and Killing It mean to you? When you think of Confident and Killing It, what's the first thing you think of? What's a memorable piece of content that I produced that really helped you or supported you? What did you like? What didn't you like? So I completely agree. You have to also think about the audience you are serving, because at the end of the day, you're there to meet those needs. So you don't have to figure it all out yourself. Actually, you can bring them into a room and get them to tell you what they want, and take those ideas and build it into your existing ideas that you have. So I always say, like, create a hypothesis of different ways you think your brand can go, and then test those hypotheses with your ideal consumer, get their feedback, and then build it into the brand. That way you have the buy-in from them that they've built this brand with you, they're committed, you know exactly what they want, you're speaking their language, very importantly. And then it just becomes a lot more smoother.
I completely agree. I mean, it's a really strange mistake that often startup brands make,
Yes.
which is not speaking to their audience and not incorporating their feedback into what they build. One thing I would say that when you are, doing those focus groups or speaking to your audience, one thing I would often test when it comes to brand, because a big part of brand is how you communicate and express that brand. One thing I forgot to mention is that a key thing in building a brand is building a brand that's memorable. And building a brand that's not just memorable but accessible, and we'll get onto that later. We call it mental availability, but building a brand that's memorable. When Tua was talking about building a brand based on her story and a description of what she did, and there was something that people latched onto, confident and killing it, that was the memorable part of how she expressed her brand. That's why people latched onto it, and that is essentially now what the kind of brand is built around. But a brand that isn't memorable will fail. There are a million different choices a consumer can make. If they don't remember you, they won't choose you. And that's fundamental. So if you're not memorable, you will be forgotten, and they'll make other choices when it comes to buying into something. The way I often describe it is, if you go into a supermarket and imagine you saw a shelf of cans and they had literally no packaging at all. They were just tin cans, the silver. You have no cues as to which brand is which. You will just pick something off the shelf.
Yeah.
Now imagine that shelf now with lots of cans, but they were all with labels on. Which can are you going to pick up? The likelihood is you'll pick up the can that you can remember either the brand colors, the brand's name, or the brand cues. You've got a million choices, but you will pick one, and think about what makes you as a consumer pick that one can.
Yeah.
Often it's because it's what you remember and it's now accessible to you. So often we talk about making sure that your brand is memorable. Brand memorability is absolutely key, but also making sure that your brand is accessible. Now, the idea of brand accessibility is really interesting because if you're starting up your brand, you've done everything. It looks fantastic. You've got a memorable name. You've got a great look and feel, and you're like, we're ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
But if your brand isn't accessible, you aren't selling a damn thing. So how will a consumer access your brand is then the next thing you've got to consider. You might have a fantastic product, but if a consumer can't get to it easily, you'll remain in the same place that you started. So brand memorability and brand accessibility is incredibly key. And there's a book that I'd recommend to everyone called How Brands Grow by Byron Sharp. His kind of theory kind of redefined how to build brands in today's world.
Well said. So let's talk a little bit about brand accessibility, because I think you've both mentioned some really good points. So, it's about making sure that you leave people remembering your brand, making sure that your brand is memorable. And I link that to a feeling that you leave behind through their experience of you or your product or service. But then there's the next step, which is being accessible. So it's all well and good, putting in all this work to create this fancy brand, and you've got fantastic colors and a beautiful logo and a nice Instagram page and a LinkedIn page. But if your brand is not accessible, you don't benefit from it. So let's talk about accessibility. How do you make your brand accessible to your target consumer or target audience?
Well, I mean, there's lots of different theories on this, and the kind of availability in people's minds is important, but this is down to the channels in which you have your brand and your product and service in. Say if you're a consumer packaged good toothpaste brand, you make your brand accessible by being in the right place. So you're in the supermarket aisle. It's really as simple as that. To be honest, brands are often inaccessible because they're just not in the right place at the right time. And it sounds trivial, but if you're a startup or you're building your brand, how do you make yourself accessible to the consumer is something to think about. and it's just about not hiding yourself under a bushel if you're a personal brand, or if you're a product or service. It's about making sure that your consumer can either access you online or through retail channels and things like that. But I'd love to hear Tiwa's perspective on that, because you have a slightly different, it's not necessarily a product, you are the brand and you deliver a service. How do you overcome that challenge?
Yeah, I think understanding where like your consumer's natural behavior is really, really important. So for example, back when I started in 2016, 2017, there weren't that many people in my kind of circle using Instagram for like inspirational, positive, motivational messages. A lot of it was blogs and maybe YouTube channels, and or even books, right? If I thought of, oh, where do I need to go for inspiration or motivation, Instagram wasn't the place. It was like YouTube, blogs, or books. And there was a generation of young women and young people who weren't reading books, right? My mom gave me my brother and my sister 15 Laws of Growth to read by John Maxwell, and my brother and sister didn't read it. They were like, nah. And I was the only one who read it. And so I was like, there's so much wisdom in books that young people are missing out on. How can I make that information accessible to them in a fun way? So if you go on my Instagram, it's not just all video after video after video of how to be motivated or how to be confident or how to be this. It's lifestyle. So it's actually like lifestyle content mixed with my confident and killing it content all in there, because that is how my target audience take in information, and that's what appeals to them. I see some other coaching pages who are all about just like videos of themselves every single piece of content, and I won't be surprised if pages like that don't grow, because that's not how people want to take it in. They want to see me on holiday and then I add in the bit of inspiration whilst I'm on holiday, or maybe I'm going on a run and I learn something from my run and I share that with them. It's not always just about sit down and speak. It's a lifestyle. And so I've been able to be more accessible to my audience by understanding what appeals to them, how they take in information. If it's too serious, they're just going to slide past. But if I'm wearing a good outfit and, my face is beat and my hair is done, they'll be like, oh, what's happening here? But meanwhile, my message is in there, but you just have to package it in a way that they can take it in. There's no point getting mad at, people like, oh, they only like when I post this kind of picture or that kind of picture and they don't like my motivation. There's no point getting mad at that, because that's how they take information in. So you have to play the game, but also stay true to your authentic self. So lifestyle content suits me because I enjoy that, and that's still true to myself. But if you're like, no, that's just not me and I want to just do what I want to do and only talk about work, that's fine, but then know who your audience are.
Mm-hmm.
Well said. Well said. Very well said. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about navigating the system, right? Once you have momentarily been able to overcome your imposter syndrome and you've built your brand and you're still in the process of trying to build your brand and you're out there, like how do you navigate the system? Because it can be really, really confusing, right? You don't know whether to turn left, right. As Tiwa said, Tiwa posts some fantastic posts. Like I wasn't able to go on holiday this year, but I was living through Tiwa's holiday posts. I was like, yes, I'm feeding off your energy, and this is what some of your followers like to see. But that, as you said, it's not for everybody. So it'll be interesting to kind of hear your views on how to navigate the system, right? When you're trying to define your brand or strengthen your brand. And Damola, let's start with you. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'd like to start by saying the system is rigged for many of us. The system is rigged.
That's a whole nother webinar, Damola.
I'm happy to be there for that as well. But no, I depending on where you are, where you come from, or where you exist, building whatever it is you're building, you'll realize that for many of us from certain backgrounds, we haven't necessarily been equipped with the tools to navigate the system. Yeah. Now, education is a fantastic tool that is given to some to help them understand what the system is and how to move around it. And often those of us who haven't been equipped with the knowledge and the tools are often the people that suffer with imposter syndrome, because not only do we not understand how to get through the system, we don't understand what the system is and how to manipulate it to work in our favor. Those who understand the system, those from privileged backgrounds that have been told, right, this is what you need to do to pass this test, get into this room, get that interview, get that job. They understand the system, how to work it. When they walk into those rooms, they don't feel like an imposter because they've been told they're meant to be there.
Yeah.
And if you believe you're meant to be there, imposter syndrome doesn't exist. That entitlement is the thing that prevents imposter syndrome even entering into your psyche. Now, navigating a system where you haven't been equipped necessarily with all of those tools and with that knowledge, I think starts with one, building a network beside you. So your peers, building a network that extends above you. So those who are already in the system and working their way around it, and building a system that, and reaching, beneath you almost, and making sure that you're pulling people through. So you've got a support network that can help you as you enter into the system. Now, the thing that I liken it to, and the people on this webinar might not be old enough to remember this, but the film The Matrix was a perfect analogy for how outsiders have to navigate the system. You have to believe that there is a system in place that is not necessarily working in your favor. Once you believe, you can now see that there are walls and there are corridors and there are barriers. Then you've got to believe in yourself, and you've got to use the tools and the people around you to help you overcome the barriers and the hurdles, and to get past the Agent Smiths of this world. And then you've got to almost boost your power with knowledge. And in this world, this is reading, and we've got knowledge everywhere. This is reading and asking questions, and really using your curiosity to acquire that knowledge. So when you encounter those people and those challenges, you know what to pull on in order to get past it. Because ignorance isn't going to help you navigate the system, only knowledge will. And I remember in my second year of university, I went to University of Leeds. So, good university, good red brick. I'm of Nigerian descent, so my parents expected me to do well. Otherwise, there's a problem. But I remember filling in an application for a Goldman Sachs internship. I'd come from a night out, which is ridiculous. I really shouldn't be telling this story, but I'd come from a night out and I was saying, right, I need to finish this application. But I sat down in that chair and I knew I was going to get an interview. Like, I had to step into that chair, not even into the interview. I had to step into that chair and write the application as if I believed I was going to end up in that place. Got to the interview, walked into the room. I was like, right, I understand how to navigate the system because I spoke to my uncle who worked in an investment bank, and he said, right, once you get into that room, this is what you need to do. Once I got past that interview and into that place, I needed to build a network around me to help me understand who was going to be my barriers, who were going to be my allies, and where were the potential pitfalls. So I had to acquire knowledge to help me move through that system. And so I think navigating the system starts with recognizing that there is a system in place and that it's rigged, and you've got to then believe in yourself, believe that you are the one, like Neo did, and then understand that there are people around you that are going to help you fight Agent Smith. And once you've fought Agent Smith, you acquire as much knowledge as you possibly can to defeat what was the Matrix or the system that we exist in. Sorry, that was a bit of a weird analogy, but I only just watched The Matrix again after 15 years, about 3 weeks ago, and I was like, this makes complete sense. This is this is a lot of our lives in this place.
Yeah.
And so it made sense to me in that regard. Anyway, I've waffled on for too much.
No, that was great.
It really was. And I think it was summarized very well, actually. Very clear steps about what you need to do. Really, really important. So I hope you guys definitely, I hope you've been taking notes throughout this whole session, because you guys have been getting gold, golden gems in the last sort of 57 minutes. Now I'm just conscious of time, right? We've talked quite a bit about overcoming imposter syndrome. We've understood the different kind of personas associated with it. We've talked about kind of the starting points in thinking about what your brand is, you know, ensuring that you consistently define what your brand is. We've talked about standing out. We've talked about being memorable. We've talked about aligning your brand with your values. You know, we've talked about so many different things. We've talked about actually once you've even overcome your imposter syndrome and you get in the room, what's your next course of action? We've talked about making sure that you are building a brand that people actually want and you are delivering a product or service that people actually want and need. All of these things that are so, so, so important. So I guess question is, you know, because these are all things we can do, but I guess the last question is for Tiwa. Can imposter syndrome be, can it be corrected? Can people completely overcome imposter syndrome from what you know?
So, you know, confidence is a practice.
Yeah.
Okay. Confidence is a practice. You're not just born with it. You don't just decide, oh, one day I'm going to be confident and then you're confident for the rest of your life. No one is confident 100% every single day, every single week. Even Beyonce is not confident every single day. Okay. So I think we've got to actually get to the truth of what confidence looks like. If you go to the gym, you will see results.
Yeah.
If you stop going to the gym, you will no longer see results. Your mind is the exact same way. If you program your mind for success by doing all the different things we talked about to overcome imposter syndrome, you will have more positivity in your life than negativity. Once you stop doing it, the negativity creeps back in. It's that simple. So if you want to live a life where your imposter syndrome is not sabotaging you and making you miss opportunities because you don't think you're good enough, you need to ask yourself, what are you doing every single day to work on your confidence? Because you can be the most confident person one year, but then maybe you get a partner that is toxic and that confidence goes out the window. Or maybe you could be a really confident person and then you get into a work situation that is toxic and it knocks your confidence. Or maybe you have a negative manager that doesn't believe in you and it knocks your confidence. So there are so many things in the world that are ready to knock your confidence. If you are not intentional about building it and practicing it, you will not live that life of freedom and independence and confidence and joy that you are deserving and worthy of living. So the question is more about, are you willing to commit to working on your confidence every single day? Are you going to deep dive into your strengths? Are you going to master your mindset? Are you going to make a commitment to yourself to believe in who you are and what you have to offer, right? Are you going to put yourself out there and own your story and own your brand? That's the real question here. And if you're ready to commit to that, then you program your mind to empower you and support you rather than to sabotage you. Sorry, Simi, I didn't mean to drag you. But yeah, it's facts. It's facts.
Honestly, simple as, if you don't put in the work, you will not get the results. Damola, anything to add?
I mean, I felt like I was at church for a second there.
Honestly.
I'm even hot from all the jamming, man. I'm like, Tiwa, you need to chill, girl.
No, it's incredibly important to create good habits, and you know the practice that you speak of is a habit. The funny thing is, you know, this imposter syndrome that we speak of is a habit that we practice all the time, and we don't counter it with better habits.
Yeah.
You know, when you think about your year, what do you remember? The bad things that have happened or the good things that have happened? Which is why I love the idea of, you know, recording your achievements, because our mind automatically records the failures. You know, you remember when you fell, but how often do you reflect on when you got up or when you succeeded? So I think you're absolutely right. You know, turning confidence into a practice. You know, we go to the gym for our muscles, but how often do we do it for our minds? And I think that's what we need to do more often.
Well said. Look, and on that note, I think we are at time. I just want to thank you both so much for being open and for all the gems that you have dropped today. I've learned a lot. I've been inspired. I feel like I've been taken to church. I can see from the audience and the guys that have tuned in, everybody else has definitely felt, you know, felt they felt inspired, they felt passionate, they feel like actually they know what they need to do. People have learned more about themselves, which is all amazing. So thank you both for bestowing your wisdom upon us all today. It's truly been an honor. So just to wrap up, if any of the guys that have tuned in today want to get in contact with you, do you want to share what your social media handles are so that they can reach out to you and follow you and support what you're doing? So let's start with Damola, because your mic's off.
So you can find me on LinkedIn, it's Damola Tumain, and on Instagram, Damola_T, or on Twitter @Damola. I'm no influencer. I've got a very humble following, so feel free to join me. I'm a photographer, so you'll see some interesting content there. Over to you.
Can you guys hear me? Sorry, my internet cut out for a sec, but I think I'm back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So follow me on Instagram. I put my handle there already @Tiwalola, and then @Confident and Killing It as well. If you want more confidence tips and to join the revolution, definitely follow and sign up to my mailing list. I put the link to the monthly wins tracker in the chat already, and also the Confident and Killing It podcast. Yeah, I've just hit like 15K downloads on that, and I launched in June, so that's like super incredible. And I have 2 episodes on imposter syndrome. I have episodes on learning to challenge your negative thoughts and build your confidence, and loads of stuff on like defining success on your own terms and things like that. So yeah, definitely check out the Confident and Killing It podcast on all like the major platforms.
Make sure you do.
So yeah, thank you for having me.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure, honestly. And for those of you who want to get in contact with myself or us at Cornerstone Partners, just message us on Instagram. It's cornerstone_partners, or email me directly, chanel@cornerstonepartners.co.uk. It's been a real treat. I've definitely enjoyed this session. And on that note, I bid you farewell. Have a good evening, guys.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.